Hi, guys. Good morning and welcome to week 4 of eLearning Fun. Today is Tuesday, April 14th. You've already done the first part of the assignment, which is to watch this video. So let's go ahead and get started. Last week, you did a number of activities that were all related to living versus non-living. So you can follow along on the slides if you want, but you really only just have to listen here. So let's click on the organisms intro and I'll put it into good format that you can see. Okay, here we go. So today we're going to talk about one of the major things that you learned last week, which is that living things have cells. So some of these pictures, I'm trying to think, we did a couple of them last week, but what you had to do last week was take a look at a number of pictures and decide whether they were living or non-living. So clearly you can see on some of these pictures already probably that some of these things are alive and not alive. And that's what we talked about last week. And one of the things that I noticed that we kind of had a little bit of trouble with was just understanding the basics of living versus non-living. And it's kind of tricky because what's alive and not alive is a little tricky to figure out, but we've got to remember that there are these basic characteristics that we use. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And these are the things that were in your reading. These are the things I also wanted you to use last week to talk about what it means to be alive. So biologists, which are scientists that study living things, use these characteristics to classify something. So anytime you want to say that something's alive, your proof is any of these things. So it's not going to be like it's breathing or it has blood. It's got to be one of these things, because what I want to try to do today is expand what your idea of being alive is. Okay. So if you remember, being alive are all these things. You use and need energy like food. You adapt to your surroundings, so you might move or respond to your environment. You react to changes. You reproduce and make new copies of yourselves, and you grow and develop. You go through a life cycle, right? Where you start out as something smaller or a little bit different, you grow, and then eventually you die. And then the final one is that you're made of cells. So so that's what we talked about last week. And an important word to remember for today is that anything that is alive is called an organism. So when we go back to these slides here, these things, the zebra, the crocodile, the frog, the flower, those are all living organisms. That's what something that's alive is. We would not say the cloud or the doll, unless you're watching a creepy horror movie. They are not alive. Okay, they do not have the characteristics of being an organism. Okay, so just to kind of give you an idea, because I think we forget what being alive is. Like last week, a lot of you said things like, oh, it can breathe, or it has blood, or it has brain. And a lot of times we think of things that are alive and we think of, just human characteristics, but really being alive is a whole bunch of different things. So I want you to kind of expand what you think being alive means. So if you look at this, next slide, you can see the 6 kingdoms of life. All of these things, even though we might not know what some of them are, they are all alive. So if you take a look at these pictures, even these tiny little things that look kind of creepy here, right? That would be bacteria or just one-celled organisms are even alive. So I want you to kind of expand your thoughts of what it means to be alive. And in fact, if we look at this tree of life here, you'll notice there are all these different colors, and we can see the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom. We can see protists here. We can see all sorts of different things like fungi. We can see just all sorts of different living things. But especially when I come over here, whoa, extreme thermophiles and extreme halophiles, and these odd looking things like mollusks and just even things like worms and whatever the heck this is, Scardonia. These are all alive, right? So think about all these, not just, and notice there's not even a human on this chart, or really many animals, right, that we think of. So there's a lot of different things. All these things are living organisms. Oops. Okay, I had a little trouble there. All right, so if you take a look at this next picture, you're going to see this again. Take a look at all these things that are alive, right? When we come down to the bottom right, we understand that